You've probably seen these before, I hope. Formula 1 is a world championship and as such races all around the world in various different countries, 21 this year to be exact. My name is Mr. V, and I've made a few videos at this point discussing all different logos associated with Formula 1 and which of them would make the best tracks. And underneath every single one of those videos, by far the most popular comment is asking me to give the same treatment to countries. Now, some of you may have seen that a couple years ago Tomo travelled back in time and copied this video. You know what? That's understandable. This is a very good video, and Tomo, I forgive you. I highly recommend you check out his video, but after you do that, you should probably come back here, because in his one he talks about 10 popular countries in Formula 1, but in this video we're looking at every race on the 2025 calendar. That is right, we are looking at which Formula 1 host country would make the best track. And also some things that aren't countries. As always, we're going to be trackifying these countries with a few rules. As standard, we assume each of these places is flat, we assume each of them goes clockwise, and we assume all of them are average length for a Formula 1 track, just to keep things unbiased. But then we need some special rules if we're talking about countries. Firstly, some countries have been very unhelpful and split themselves up into separate pieces separated by water, which they apparently call islands. There are no Formula 1 track design regulations for jumping over water, so we need to figure something out here. Do we consider every island as part of the main block of the country, or do we exclude everything that's floating out in the sea? I've decided we'll go somewhere in the middle and give every country the squint test. Basically, if the islands look joined up when you squint at them, they get to stay in. But if they still look separate, they're going in the bin. That means Japan will be keeping all of its major islands, Shikoku, Kyushu and Hokkaido, but the United Kingdom will be losing Northern Ireland. I mean, geographically speaking, it looks like it should be part of the Republic of Ireland anyway. Hope that's not a controversial political statement. Should probably look that one up. 1 second. Well. Then secondly, we need to decide how many corners each country has. As I found out recently, the borders of different countries can get pretty long. Over the length of that border, they can get bendy when you zoom in. And I get the feeling that a track with hundreds of thousands of corners is going to be a little bit tedious, so we need to simplify them somehow. But how do we do that fairly? Using the UK as an example, I could trackify it like this, or like this, or like this. But as a Formula 1 fan, some of these options feel... So, as a completely arbitrary rule, I have decided that every country will be limited by the number of corners that its actual track has, so the UK can have no more than 18 corners, the same as Silverstone. Now, I would like to note, this is a rule that I regretted immediately when I started making these tracks. That's all the rules we need to design these things, and so let's get to it and get them all up on the tier list. And we might be able to crack out the is it better than the actual track board. Right, 24 tracks, 21 countries. Time to head to the airport. Case, check. Passport, check. An easy and affordable way to use mobile data on my phone while I'm traveling? Check. This video is sponsored by Saily, an eSIM app from the makers of NordVPN. If you're heading off to another country, maybe to watch a Formula 1 race, for work, or just for a nice little holiday, you've probably thought about the hassle of not having your normal mobile data once you arrive. You could get a roaming plan from your normal provider, but those can get pricey. Or you could download Saily, select which country you're going to, and then choose from a range of data plans all at affordable prices. They even have plans for entire regions in case you're traveling around Europe, or maybe hopping between a few different places in Asia. Saily takes away the trouble and makes sure that you're still connected wherever you go, so you can still use maps, still read reviews for food places, and still look up how to order in the local language. But let's be honest, you're just going to say it slowly in English, aren't you? Saily is the easiest way to stay connected when you're traveling, and with the built-in ad blocker from the makers of NordVPN, it's the best way too. If you want to try Saily for yourself, you can get an exclusive 15% discount when you use the code MrVGarage at checkout. I wasn't allowed enough letters to get the S in there. That's code MrVGarage when you download the Saily app, or you can go to saily.com/MrVGarage. Thank you, Saily, for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the tracks. I'm not actually going to the airport. The budget for this video went on my Adobe Photoshop subscription so I could make the track outlines. And speaking of, let's kick this thing off where the actual 2025 season started, in Australia. The Australian Grand Prix takes place at Albert Park, which has 14 corners, and so the map of the country turns into something like this when we make it a track. Okay, you know what? I think we might be starting out strong for once. Nice corner speed variety. We start the lap off down this big bendy straight, carrying a lot of speed into the Melbourne curve before we get to the very technical Adelaide chicane. We then have some unique corner profiles up on the north coast. I think this section from 12 to 14 would be a pretty good challenge, trying to carry as much speed as possible to maximize the pit straight. Lots of it has some nice flow, but that being said, I do think the tight sections here are a bit too tight, particularly the chicane at 2 and 3, and the rest of the lap looks pretty prone to the dirty air problems that plague so many other tracks in Formula 1. I do think there could be some overtaking opportunities down at 5 or maybe 7, and you know, even if you can't fight someone along the north coast, it is still an interesting challenge, so I think any given lap here would be quite fun to watch. I think this could score quite highly. I'm thinking high B tier for Australia, near the boundary for A, but not quite over it sadly. And while this thing is decent, it is not as good as the actual Albert Park layout, and so the Is It Better board is staying in storage for now. Next up is China, which can't have any more than 16 corners, and so the country turns into something like this. An interesting mixture of corner complexes separated by these huge sweeping flat out sections of the Himalaya Strait, the Mongolia Bend and the Shanghai Curve. And no, before you ask, these things do not get corner numbers, do not question my track maps. I do love the start to this lap. A tight turn 1, which is bound to see some action at the start of the race, a couple S's, and then a run into another couple off throttle S's up in the northwest, which just have a beautiful flow over a single lap. The slipstream opportunities down the flat out sections also mean that fights can continue for basically the entire first half of this lap. Nice. My only concern with the Chinese track is this nonsense down by Beijing. You had a good thing going, China. What is this? Turn 11 would be okay in isolation, but 4 extra slow corners in a row just means this section would feel bad. It's a bit of a shame then flow-wise, but I do still think that this track gives excellent overtaking and fighting opportunities. And so, despite the Beijing blah, I am going to stick China up in B tier once more. I think it's the bendy straights that did it for me. I love a straight that's not quite straight. Don't read into that sentence. And also, while this is good, I would say that final sector means it's not quite as good as the actual Shanghai International, so nothing is going on the Is It Better board just yet. Japan gives us something a little bit different, with its long, narrow chain of islands giving us a thin track with lots of unique bends. Hang on a second. We've just made Jeddah again. It's not exactly like Jeddah though. The lap starts with a high-speed section down into the Kyushu Spoon, which is a very important corner to get right so you can carry maximum speed through the Kink of 4 and up to the Ishikawa hairpin. Pretty good start to the lap then. The northern end of the track though is a bit If you took just a couple of these corners, you would have a nice challenge, but all of this together makes a very slow, very windy second half of the lap. Just way too many changes of direction between 10 and 16, meaning there's absolutely no chance of a fight through here, and I don't think it would be particularly fun to watch in quali either. And so because of all this stuff up in the north, I'm going to have to stick Japan down in C tier. The Bahrain International Circuit is of course in Bahrain, the 4th smallest country on our list today. We are obviously going to kick out the Hawar Islands down here, but we're also going to kick out this island, Al Nasan, so we're just left with the central chunk of this thing. Turning this into a track, the straight coasts of the south give us some very long straights, with a couple sweepers to keep us interesting, meaning that most of the corners on this lap are up in the north around Manama. Initially, this looks a bit messy, but following the line through here, I think this could make some interesting racing, with multiple chances for cars to get side by side. I could definitely see a slipstream up this straight turning into a fight through 4, 5, 6, and actually that could probably carry on through 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. After that, the last 2 corners are very slow and very cramped together, which I just don't think is fun for Formula 1. But I do think you could get some fun racing here, so I am going to stick it up in B tier, which is decent. But the actual Bahrain International Circuit, which sits right by turn 3, in case you're wondering, is a solid A tier in my opinion, and so this thing is not going on the Is It Better board. The actual Jeddah Corniche circuit has, officially, 27 corners, so we have quite a lot to play with when converting Saudi Arabia. I didn't use all of them, instead getting this layout which has 19 corners, and actually, it looks kind of like a track you might see in the real world. It gives me vibes similar to maybe Road Atlanta, Mount Panorama, Circuit de la Sarthe, but like smaller. We start the lap with some medium speed corners before a more technical section leading us onto the longest straight of the track up the Red Sea. Turn 11 here is a devilish flat out kink in a Formula 1 car, which could turn out to be extra sketchy if you have to get on the brakes before the apex while travelling at 220 miles per hour. Could this corner kill someone? Yes. Has that ever stopped Saudi Arabia in their track design before? No. The rest of the lap gives us some more high-speed kinks and this weird triple chicane, which is very similar to the one at the end of the Las Vegas street circuit. I don't care for it personally, but I can appreciate how it ups the skill ceiling of a track and makes it a truer test of driver skill. You know what? I think this is actually a great track for a driver with a lot of opportunities for an overtake and a feel similar to many classic tracks around the world. I'm thinking this could be an A-tier track, which brings us to the question, is it better than Jeddah? I know some of you are big fans of the Jeddah Corniche circuit with its buffet of high-speed dangerous corners, and I will admit we have had some fun racing there, but I quite like this thing. It is close, but then again, I do believe that Jeddah has only had fun races because Max Verstappen keeps putting on a show, and if he specifically didn't have a quick car, the races would have been much more boring. And so yeah, you know what? I would prefer the Saudi Arabia track over Jeddah. It's going on the board. So, our next race is in Miami, which is obviously in the United States. But we have a race later in the year called the United States Grand Prix, so I think we should leave this map until then. But that begs the question, what do we do for Miami? The race is called the Miami Grand Prix, but I don't think we should be turning city boundaries into tracks. So instead, let's take the highest level subdivision after country level, which in the United States is called a state. It's a long-winded way of saying we're doing Florida. As US states go, Florida has one of the more interesting shapes for a track, and when we transform it, yeah, that's looking pretty good actually. These square corners up at the top obviously give a vibe that this is partially a street circuit with some kind of park section down below around a lake or something. The first half of the lap is obviously very quick, with turn 6 being the first major braking zone after you've flung yourself around turn 5. And I quite like the look of that actually. It's a nice challenge for a driver and it will force some errors in a race. Really nice mix of ideas here then, with some good variety in the corner complexes. But I do worry about this slow section up by Jacksonville, particularly the transition between turns 12 and 13. It's similar to the Monaco hairpin, but if the hairpin was shoved closer to Mirabeau, just not fun. But that's really my only issue with this place, and the horrors of the Jacksonville chicane are more than made up for with these banger corners at 1 and 8 in particular. Some issues mean I can't give this top marks, but I do love the mix of high and medium speed corners, so this thing is straddling right on that line between A and B tier. B tier. In terms of the Is It Better board, I actually think the rating for this is similar to the Miami Autodrome. In a way, I'm tempted to put it on this board just to spite the Miami track. I am concerned that the chicane hairpin thing on the Florida track is worse than the underpass chicane in Miami, but then again, I think the rest of the lap is more fun on the Florida outline, and so, yeah, you know what? It's going on the board! Okay, so just like Miami, we now have another conundrum. Our next race is at Emilia, which is obviously in Italy, but it's not the Italian Grand Prix. This race is called the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, named after, well, Emilia Romagna, a region of Italy. I guess it's like a US state in a way, but not as independent. And actually my main issue with this thing is the shape of it is just kind of boring to turn into a track. And actually, if we look back in time, the race at Emilia has only been called the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix 4 times, 5 if you watch this in like a week or 2. But there is another name that's been used 26 times at Imola, the San Marino Grand Prix. San Marino is small, smaller even than Singapore, making it the second tiniest thing on our list. And so the track does actually show off some of the finer details, making the overall lap lumpy. Oh, it's just like Jeddah again, but if someone blew it up like a balloon. This place is dirty air hell, particularly in the final sector. The first sector is alright and ironically reminds me of Imola, but after turn 10 we then get stuck in this Jeddah style nightmare where you are constantly swapping from one corner to the next, and you can guarantee there is no hope in hell of cars ever having a fight through here. I do like some of the corners here. Turns 1, 2, 3 look like they could be fun, and I do like the hefty sweepers of 8 and 9. But this rally stage mess is not what we want in Formula 1. So overall, I'm going to have to stick San Marino down in C tier along with Japan. And no, it is not better than the actual Imola. From the second smallest thing on our list to the smallest, it's time for Monaco. Monaco is so small in fact that if we took the 19 corner track around the outline of this place at real size, it would only be 12 kilometers long, which is long but not totally unreasonable for Formula 1. It's less than 2 laps of Spa. But to keep things fair, we assume this is the same length as all the other country tracks. And so while we do still have to-back corner with the exact same profile and entry direction, it is now tighter and therefore slower than the actual Monaco version. The lap starts with some corners reminiscent of the Baku City street circuit, but we do then get a fun kink through turn 3 into the slowest section of this track. It's another hairpin, exactly like the real Monaco. They can't keep getting away with this! The rest of the lap is similar. We have some high-speed sections like the big boy bend of turn 9, but other than that, the lap is pretty slow with 3 hairpins and multiple slow 90-degree corners. But then again, the real Monaco is slow as well. I can't see any good locations for an overtake here. But then again, you can't overtake in real Monaco either. This thing is not great. I'm thinking C tier at best, but I am wondering, can we add it to the Is It Better board? In terms of suitability for Formula 1, actual Monaco is the worst thing we've got. And so while this thing isn't exactly a banger, I am going to say it does go up on the board, because if nothing else, it's normal size for a track instead of this nonsense. Right, back to normal sized countries as we continue the European leg of the season in Spain. Spain overall is a very round country, but it does have some angular bits and protrusions, meaning we're not going oval racing in Formula 1 just yet. We only have 14 corners to play with here, so we're going to have to lose quite a few details, particularly on the south coast. But actually, I think this is a pretty good track. A cheeky high-speed chicane at turn 1, which is guaranteed to cause a collision on the first lap, but I never said that was a bad thing. A nice round turn 3 into the run down to Valencia, which serves up another beautifully tricky chicane for us. On the brakes through the apex of 4, trying to carry as much speed through 5 while the weight of the car is shifting. The whole thing is potentially the most important corner of the lap because it sets up the run down to turn 8. Beautiful. This whole thing is basically a circle with a few chicanes, which is weirdly similar to Castle Combe, a track in the UK. But Spain has some extra medium speed corners up by Galicia, and the chicanes here are more pronounced, making it more of a challenge for a Formula 1 car, because this is basically just flat. Also, I should add, the main reason I said Castle Combe was bad for Formula 1 back in the home race calendar video is because it's tiny. Look at this! A nice track then, but maybe lacking some of the variety it needs to become one of the greats. I'm thinking high B tier, low A, B, A, B, A. I'm gonna go A tier. I like it. And is it better than the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya? This one pains me to say because I do love the Barcelona track, but it might be. I'm going to stick it on here with a maybe tag. Let me know if you agree. Off to Canada now, an absolutely enormous country which we have to try and trackify with only 14 corners. All of the islands up in the north are close enough that I am going to include them, and so we get a track that looks something like this. I think the lower corner count might have helped Canada here, because this thing gives me a vibe similar to Interlagos, which is, you know, decent. Basically, the entire lap is a high and medium speed whirlwind with a couple of hairpins thrown in to test your hot tyres after you've been blasting it through the fast first sector. And of these hairpins, turn 10 down at the bottom of the Hudson is a perfect example of a hairpin done right. Just look at the lines on the way in here. You come through turn 9 trying to carry as much speed as possible, but at the same time have to get yourself over to the other side of the track to maximize your entry through the hairpin. Oh, it is beautiful. An old school high speed track for Canada then, with some corners that are sure to be fan favorites, like the fast follow through of turn 1 or the long edge of grip left-hander of turn 8. Combine that with the fact that this has some amazing corner names: Newfie, Erie, Baffin. This thing is an undeniable banger, and so the only tough decision here is whether this thing is a solid A tier or whether it makes its way up into the all-elusive S tier. If it looks like Interlagos, that's enough for me. S tier, and it's going on the board too. Sorry Montreal, but you don't have any corners called Baffin, do you? Austria up next, and if you thought I was being stingy on corners in Canada, just wait until you see this, because we only have 10 corners to play with. After a lot of tweaking to get down to 10 corners, I ended up with this. This thing has the feel of an old school track and actually looks pretty similar to Mossport in Canada. Turn 9 is the slowest corner on this track, and it's not even that slow. Other than that, we have some high-speed behemoths like the tightening turn 2, which you enter at 225 miles per hour. It's similar to maybe Parabolica at Monza. Expect some crashes. And that's not to mention turn 1 before it, which is similar to maybe Pouon or Blanchimont at Spa, and so just getting round to turn 4 on this track is a major accomplishment. This is one for anyone who enjoys that kind of old school high speed circuit, and I can't deny that a hot lap around here would be a lot of fun, but I am getting a little concerned about the dirty air problem once more, and having turns 2, 4 and 9 as our only overtaking opportunities, we're not going to get any overtaking. I get the feeling that fans would like this place, but similar to fan favourites like Spa, it won't always give us an exciting race. Therefore, I'm going to stick it up in B tier, because despite its problems, I wouldn't mind just aimlessly watching cars fling themselves around this place, and you know we're going to get some big crashes in the race. And so we get to the UK. As I mentioned before, we're going to be leaving out Northern Ireland because it's just too far away, and we're actually going to be leaving out Orkney and the Shetland Islands as well. It's a shame because they both have a town called Twat, which I do think would make a good corner name for cultural reasons. Which just leaves us with Great Britain, which for those of you who don't know refers to the big island in the middle here and not all the other gubbins in the sea. Silverstone gives us 18 corners to play with, but maybe it shouldn't, because I do not like that. We start with the line up near Newcastle and race our way down to turn 1, which you could call the Norfolk curve, but I much prefer to call Skegness, just to confuse all of you who are not from here and are now wondering whether that's a real place name or I just made it up to sound funny. That then brings us into a slow, windy first sector with a tight chicane at London, before we race along the south coast to the hairpin at Land's End. We then get this incredible stop-start series of hairpins and 90-degree corners as we head up the west coast, which just looks awful. Scotland is a bit better, and you could have some fun flinging yourself through turn 14, but after that, it's stop-start again, and so the flow of this track never really gets going. Just too many corners, too close together, killing off any flow and any semblance of enjoyment along with it. This thing is going at least down in C tier, but I'm looking at San Marino in Japan, and they at least have some nice sections. I don't want to drive any of this UK track, and so I'm thinking, much like everything that happens within this island, it's just a bit crap, mate. The UK is going in D tier, and I'm going to get some angry comments, I know. And with that, we get to the halfway point in the 2025 season, but those of you who have looked down below are seeing that we're at the end of this video. Doing 24 tracks makes this the biggest tracks project so far, but I wanted to give each country enough time to rate them properly. So rather than make this video way too long, meaning you guys wouldn't click it, I thought it's better to take a little breather and we can all come back for a part 2 and rate the second half of this season. Will anywhere make it up to the elusive S tier with Canada, Italy, the Netherlands, the United States? I guess we'll have to find out next time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, why not subscribe so you don't miss part 2? If this video is more than 1 week old, that should already be out, but you can subscribe anyway, it's a pretty cool thing to do. Thank you for watching this video, thank you to Saily for sponsoring this video. I have been Mr. V, and I will Mr. C you later.